Support for the Lancast is provided by Winding Way Books, Ryan Hess, Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, and Lap Structures.
Welcome to the Lancast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Becky Svensson. On this episode of the Lancast, we hear from Matt and Nat Thomas, a married photography duo.
The duo shares with us about their journey to professional photography.
And they decided, hey, we should get married. And she asked us, she's like, well, you guys have a camera, right? You could shoot their wedding for us. And we were like, no, we don't know what we're doing. It's just a point and shoot camera. I mean, to us, it was like a really awesome camera, but it was just, knowing what we know now, it was just a basic point and shoot camera.
We had my film camera, but Matt didn't know anything about film.
I didn't know anything about film, so we were like, we're completely unqualified, and they pretty much begged us and said, you know, we're not going to get pictures anywhere else, you know, so if you could just come take some, that would be great. And so we said, okay.
Being a married professional team brings an interesting dynamic to both their work as photographers and their relationship as husband and wife.
Photography was a passion that we both shared, but it was also a way that we could spend time together as a couple, do something together, and build something that, is, something that is really rewarding for us as a couple.
Enjoy the conversation.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about how each of you got into photography.
Go ahead.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I was a volunteer overseas for 6 years in Australia, actually. It's where we met. And I found myself doing a lot of marketing, a lot of website work and graphic design. And what ended up happening for me was I really hated the pictures that I had to work with. So I ended up getting a camera and just shooting things myself just because, I wanted better pictures, and it kind of evolved from there. But that was my intro into the world of photography.
The earliest I remember being interested in photography was in high school. I remember taking one photography class, and we had like a little dark room, and so I started out that way, and I really loved it. And then in college, I worked at a photo lab, and we sold cameras, and we did a lot of developing for wedding photographers. So I kind of started really looking at weddings in a different way. There was this one lady that would come in, and her pictures were just absolutely beautiful. And then I bought my first film SLR camera, and I took still life photos mostly. I took that with me to Australia and didn't use it much, mostly because film was pretty expensive and everything was transferring over to digital. And like Matt said, we were volunteers, so I didn't have that much money to spend on film. So I didn't use it a whole lot, but when I got the chance, I really enjoyed it. And then I guess the rest of it happened after Matt and I were already together, and the world of digital photography came about.
Now, was photography one of the things that brought you two together, or was it just a common interest that you both shared?
Actually, we didn't even know it was a common interest, really, before we were together. We actually were recently married, and we had a good friend of ours. Her mom was living with a guy for over 15 years, and they decided, hey, we should get married. And she asked us, she's like, well, you guys have a camera, right? You could shoot their wedding for us. And we were like, no, we don't know what we're doing. It's just a point and shoot camera. I mean, to us, it was like a really awesome camera, but it was knowing what we know now, it was just a basic point and shoot camera.
We had my film camera, but Matt didn't know anything about film.
I didn't know anything about film. So we were like, we're completely unqualified. And they pretty much begged us and said, we're not going to get pictures anywhere else, so if you could just come take some, that would be great. And so we said, okay. And then interestingly enough, a week before the wedding, I lost the camera.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So we kind of had a little panic attack, and, we had been getting more into photography. So it was the perfect excuse that we needed to actually buy like a real digital, SLR camera. So we bought ourselves a Canon 30D.
With the kit
lens, and I jumped on, every single blog and site that I could find that had anything related to do with wedding photography, and a week later we shot our first wedding.
And it was a lot of fun. It was kind of interesting because I was still kind of against digital SLRs. I still really liked my film camera, but Matt didn't know anything about it. I also thought that it was really convenient that he lost our camera the week before the wedding because I knew that he wanted something a little bit better. So,
well, the reason that she says that is because a week after the wedding, I found the camera in my golf bag.
Which is the obvious place to put your camera.
Right. So she doesn't quite believe me that I actually lost it, but, I did.
So you mentioned that you both are self-taught, but now today you're professional photographers. What were some of the most formative tools, resources, people, things that you met that really taught you the ropes, and what you need to know today?
Online. I mean, in today's world, information is literally at every turn. And so I'm a much more self-motivated teacher than a sit down on the classroom kind of person. So I learn really well on my own. So if there's something that I want to know how to do, I just pretty much don't sleep until I figure it out or I find someone that can show me. So a combination of online resources and then also just getting out and getting to know other photographers. Lancaster is such a great area for wedding photographers and photographers in general with our, we have so much arts here. And, we have friends who are photographers, and it's just great to rub shoulders with those people. You learn so much just by doing that.
Well, I think for me, it probably started when I was working in the Photoshop. Like I said, I learned how to develop pictures, and I learned, I saw in film what were good and bad exposures. I started to see pictures that I really liked and pictures that I didn't like so much, and just different styles that really stood out to me. And so I think that's kind of where I guess my style of photography started kind of to grow. And and then after that, getting into digital, a lot of my learning came from Matt because like he said, he is very self-motivated to learn something on his own. He hates meetings. He hates a classroom setting. So it's actually kind of nice because then he learns something really quickly because he'll look it up and he'll figure it out on his own. And then he'll teach me. And it's really good that way because I have little to no patience. So he is one of the most patient people that I know. So it's really good when I'm not understanding something. He has a really good way of explaining it. And we've also been to other photography seminars and conferences that both have to do with the technical side of things and then also just the vision of photography and going beyond just doing it for a job. It really is our passion. And so we've tried to surround ourselves with people who it's the same for them so that we keep moving forward and not getting stuck in a box.
For us, it's always been about more than just the photography itself. It's been more about how do we want to live our lives and what's important to us. So photography was a passion that we both shared, but it was also a way that we could spend time together as a couple, do something together and build something that, is, something that is really rewarding for us as a couple.
When we talk with a lot of photographers, especially self-taught photographers like yourself, we hear a lot about things that helped you get to where you are and like some of the great things that you've learned. One of the things that I think that we haven't focused on before is what were some of the major stumbling blocks that really laid in your path and at points, is there anything at points that maybe made you think this was a bad decision?
I think we had some of that when we first started, because you take a huge risk. And you're wondering, okay, I am now a professional photographer. So what do I do now? I mean, obviously we need to get work and get jobs, but when you're starting out, you don't have any of that coming in regularly. And so, probably the biggest hindrance was probably just our own fear. It wasn't until one day we sat down and decided, okay, if we do this, if we just go all in, full time, what's the worst case scenario? So we thought about if we lose all of our, investment that we have in equipment, we spend a few years and we lose everything, we can recover from that. It was like when we realized that, the worst case scenario really isn't that bad. We just decided, well, what the heck, let's give it a few years and see what happens. And, that was 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we don't have any plans to stop. I think we've been completely blown away by, how fast we grew and just how much fun we're having and even being able to pay some bills has, been awesome as well.
Yeah. I think for me personally, it's probably just the fear of what people think about us. That's something that just personally I probably have always struggled with is, will people like, my pictures? Will people like Matt and I as photographers? Will we click with people? How do we get jobs? And pretty much, like Matt said, just the fear of not being successful was probably the biggest hindrance in the beginning. But like Matt said, when we sat down and thought about, all the possible things that could go wrong and decided that we could be okay and that we could handle it if that all happened, then it kind of took that fear away. And that just gave us the opportunity to move forward and go for it. And it's been amazing. So I'm really glad we did that at the very beginning, because I'm not sure what would have happened if we would have just been kind of led by those fears and stuff. I think the other thing too is, at the beginning, there were people in our lives that told us that we couldn't start a business and that it just wasn't possible. We were right at the beginning of the downturn of the economy, and yeah, that was really hard too.
That was probably all the motivation that I needed to start. Really. I mean, I'm just that kind of person that if you tell me I can't do something, then I just want to do it all the more.
Yeah. Thankfully, we had a lot of people that really supported us as well and made it possible for us to be settled in our decision to move forward with it.
It seems like you do a lot of wedding photography and engagement sessions. Those are some pretty personal portraits and some really focused time with the couple. How do you establish trust and kind of make that a comfortable experience for people who might not be used to having their picture taken or enjoy that process?
That's an awesome question.
It's a very good question.
I think one of the first things that we do is, in our initial meeting with any of our couples, is Matt and I's philosophy is that you absolutely have to be comfortable with your photographer. So there's probably 3 things that you have to think about when you're hiring a wedding photographer. 1, you have to obviously be able to afford them. 2, you have to love their pictures and they have to be in the style that you're looking for. And then 3, you have to feel comfortable around those people. And Matt and I are totally okay with, if you don't feel comfortable around us in that first initial meeting, then maybe it's not the right fit. And we're upfront with every couple that we meet with about that. And usually there's kind of, an instant connection, and you can kind of feel that, and the conversation carries on in that first initial meeting. So that's usually a pretty good sign that we're going to work really well together. As far as engagement sessions go, we love engagement sessions because that's the time that we get to know the couple and they get to know us. So we both kind of get to see each other and how we work together, how they are as a couple. Matt and I will do a lot of, asking questions, asking them about their lives, about how they met, what they do, what their plans are for the future, stuff like that. And then we can kind of see how they interact as a couple. And that's really important to us, because if they're feeling like they can be themselves and they can just interact amongst the two of them, and we're kind of not even there, then that's when you get like the real pictures and real expressions and kind of who they are as a couple. Does that make sense? Yeah,
we really encourage people to be themselves, more than anything. And if you can be yourself and, in front of the camera, then you're like you mentioned, your smiles are actually going to be real. They're not going to look fake. Because if you're actually legitimately having a good time, it's going to look like that in your pictures.
And I think that then on the wedding day, they already know us. So there's no apprehension about these 2 photographers coming in with, these big lenses, and they're just going to be in my face all day. They already know us, and it's just like we're friends coming in with cameras, and we're just there for the day, and they can be themselves. And I think the majority of people that we work with are really nervous the first time they're in front of the camera. Most of us don't love being in front of a camera. So, and we get that. I mean, Matt and I are the same. We don't love the other side of the lens. So we understand that. And it's our job as photographers to just let them be themselves and forget that we have cameras in our hands.
That's one of the funnest parts, though, about our job, is that when we have a couple or someone who is in front of our cameras that doesn't feel comfortable, and we take a few pictures in the beginning of a session, and we always turn the camera around and just say, here's a sample of what we're getting, and their faces just light up, and they're like, oh my gosh, I look beautiful. And they're like, we love you guys. Like, everyone wants, to look good. So it's just really fun to see that transformation of stiff to I'm unsure about this to, rock star supermodel by the end of the session,
Mm-hmm. And like making suggestions. What if we did this? And I don't know. There's lots of times where the couple's like, well, he always gives me a piggyback ride on the way home from the bar or something. So then we'll end up doing that at the end of the session. It's random stuff like that they start making suggestions, and it's fun because you can tell that then they're comfortable, and then we know we've done our job.
Yep.
And we'll be back after the break with Matt and Nat.
Lancast is proud to be sponsored this episode by Lab Structures.
Lab Structures are premier builders of custom sheds and other outbuildings, and you can find them in Pleasant, New Holland, PA.
One of the things Lab Structures is known for is their ability to put your structure wherever you need it. Whether that be a rural open backyard or a close-quarter city yard, they've got a way to get it done.
So if you're thinking about more storage space, some place for your outdoor supplies, or a garage for that new car, Lab Structures has got you covered.
If you'd like to learn more about Lab Structures, you can visit thelancast.com and click on their banner at the top of the page. Also, if you mention to Linda that you heard this ad, you'll get a free ramp with your structure. And we're back on the Lancast with Matt and Nat. You guys display your photos in a very interesting way besides the normal website. You also have a blog where you use your photography to tell a story. How did that idea come up?
When was it? About a year and a half ago, we were in California for a photography conference. And during one of the sessions, a photographer by the name of Jeremy Cowart, who's amazing, was speaking. And I truly don't exactly remember what he was speaking about, but he's very much an advocate for using your photography to help others. He does a lot of work with celebrities, but then on top of that, he does a lot of work for nonprofit organizations and does a lot of traveling throughout the world. So this was something that I had been thinking about. Matt and I were volunteers for 6 years. So in starting our business, we wanted to do something beyond just making it a business. While Jeremy Cowart was speaking, I was inspired with a couple of ideas. And one of these ideas was for our blog to basically tell someone's story. And I wanted to do this about regular people, everyday people, singles, couples, older, younger. It didn't matter who. I just wanted to be able to tell people's stories. I think that oftentimes people feel a little bit lost in life, that they're not really going in a certain direction, or that what they're doing isn't worth anything. And I think that my whole idea behind telling stories is that each life is worth a story. And it doesn't matter if you're in a job that you absolutely love or in a job that you absolutely hate. I think everybody has something to give. And I think that storytelling is a huge part of that, because I feel like sometimes people are just kind of wandering around wondering what to do with their life and what direction to go in, when in reality, there's things already in their life that are amazing. And so that's kind of where this all started from. And the very first story that I wrote was of my sister, who had gone through a really difficult year in her life, and her and I's relationship was really rocky. And we ended up meeting in Vegas for a weekend over our birthdays. And I just took her out and we did a photo shoot. And then I did an interview, and I just asked her about her life and who she was and who she wanted to be. And somewhere along the way, our relationship completely changed. And not only are we amazing friends, but I got to share a little bit of her story and encourage her in where she was at in life, and just to continue moving forward. And from that, I've done a couple more There was 2 different couples that I did, and then another girl, a friend of ours from Australia, that will be going on the blog soon. But basically, it's different for every person, or couple, but I just ask them a set of questions, and then Matt and I will do a photo shoot with them, and we just kind of match up what their story is with the pictures. And
yeah. I mean, we really truly believe that there are no ordinary people out there, that everyone has extraordinary qualities, and we just think that it's really fun to bring those to light and share those in whatever way we can do that.
Well, I know the only logical question to come after this, and it's definitely been on Becky's mind and my mind, is when are you going to cover the Lancast through this blog story?
Well, it'll have to be soon now, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Like our cameras are here. So.
Yeah. Right after this, then.
And this is an interview.
So how long have you been doing the Lancast?
The Lancast, we're almost up to 3 years.
3 years. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Any more questions, Matt?
Oh, I could keep going.
Okay.
We can continue afterwards.
Well, getting back to what you're doing, just wondering, as part of those stories, if couples ever pick their locations for shooting based on their story, or if there are any other kind of symbolic elements that you bring into the photo shoot itself.
Yeah, definitely. With the stories and then also with engagement sessions, we always give the couples or the singles the option of where they want to go. So a lot of times with engagement sessions, it will be like where they had their first date or where they got engaged, anything like that.
First kiss.
Yeah.
Any place that's sentimental for them is great.
Yeah, that's kind of where it starts from. And then if there's nothing that really stands out to them, then we go from there. And Matt and I can make suggestions, and we go from there. But as far as the stories go, I think the one that stands out to me the most is we did a couple in Florida at the beginning of the year, and he's in the Marines. So we did some pictures with him in uniform. And
they got married really young and never ever had professional photography taken of the two of them. So it was really special for them, never having experienced that when they got married, to be able to take them out and do a shoot of them together and really focus on them as a couple and their relationship.
And it's them after 3 kids. They have a 4th on the way. And actually, after we did the photo shoot, we found out that he was going to be deployed again. So it was a really fun thing to do for them. But then at the same time, we were able to give him some pictures that he could take with him while he's overseas. So it was pretty special for them and for us too.
Well, I'm going to change the subject here just slightly, and I want to talk about the two of you working together as a couple. You guys are constantly with other people at the height of what some people would call their love relationship, I guess, as they're getting married and just got engaged and stuff. As a couple growing, how does this affect your lives?
Well, I can tell you that I could be a wedding officiant. I could probably quote, a typical wedding ceremony in my sleep. So we're constantly reminded of our vows to each other, which I think is really cool. And it's really encouraging to be around young couples in love. I mean, anyone who's ever been around a young couple in love knows that it's contagious.
Yeah.
So have weddings lost any of their luster for you?
No,
I think honestly, I think it's increased.
Yeah.
Weddings, in fact, pretty much every weekend, Nat will mention to me how when we get married again, we could do this and we could do that. And she sees all these new ideas every weekend.
And then Matt immediately smashes my hope by saying it won't happen. So,
but it might actually happen one day. So yeah, it's fun. We actually really love weddings. So, and I think that's one reason why we love our job so much is that, we don't get sick of weddings, and we really love all the details, and we love it when our couples come over and we talk about what colors, and, I know way more about dresses than I should ever admit. Weddings are great.
Yeah, they're fun. And it's like a party every weekend, and people are truly happy, and it's fun to be a part of that.
I really can't think of a better job to share with my wife than being a wedding photographer.
Do you find that each one of you has a strength as a photographer, or even in the larger scope of your business?
Mm-hmm.
And what are those strengths?
You first.
Okay. Well, I would say in like the grand scheme of things, Matt is definitely the vision and I'm definitely the details. So that is both a strength and a constant source of frustration between us. So
I overwhelm her with ideas sometimes. I think, well, we could do this and we could do that. And at the beginning of our relationship, she was so detailed that she would actually sit down and start planning this stuff out and get overwhelmed. And, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to do that? And like, she would come to me a couple weeks later and say, okay, I think we can do this. And I'm like, what? Do what? I don't even remember that idea.
Yeah.
So she's learned to know that if I don't bring it up like 37 times, that it's probably not
going to happen. It was just a passing
whim,
thought.
so
Yeah. But we've helped each other in that way too. I've become a lot more visionary, and I've had a lot more ideas over the past few years because I've learned from Matt in that, and he has had to become a lot more detailed. Just in life and in photography as well. And
I mean, to answer your question, we're complete opposites, so we really do complement each other in a lot of ways. Where I'm weak, she's strong, and where she's strong, I'm weak.
I think you said you were weak twice.
I'm weak. I married up. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's sweet. Yeah, but as far as photography goes too, I think that Matt's strength is definitely on the design side of things, and our final products that we give to our clients, and then also seeing the big picture. So he's the one that will, scope out where the best light is and where we do first looks with couples and different things like that. And then I'm kind of the one that, knows all the names and, remembers, which family groupings need to happen and stuff like that. So yeah, we definitely complement each other, in that area. And it's good that we're both there, because if it was just one of us, it would look significantly different.
Yeah, it really is. Matt and Nat, we wouldn't ever dream of doing weddings with just one of us.
Working together in this capacity, especially with a artistic flair, and you have to pull on each other's strengths like this, do you find that you need release from each other because you're together all the time?
Yes. She enjoys her lattes.
I do.
I can't stand coffee, and I enjoy riding my motorcycle and hanging out with my guy friends, watching football.
I like the motorcycle too.
She likes the motorcycle too, but every now and then I just need to get out and so we have our own separate hobbies. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely need them, and we definitely know when we need them too, because all of a sudden we're arguing about a lot. So then we just kind of take a day separately, but we also need just, dates together as well. That's not talking about weddings or photography or home or anything like that. And which ends up being more of a challenge than actually taking a break from each other. That's usually fairly easy, but
so there's kind of 3 different times that we need. We need time together on the business, we need time together away from the business, and we need just time away.
Yeah. From each other.
So and it's really easy for her to schedule those times, but for me it's kind of all random. I was like, hey, let's go do this right now, and so
that totally messes with my detailed
so we have to work through that because we're so different, in the way we plan things and approach our day. So
do you have any stories of wardrobe malfunction that you can share with us, or was there ever a time when a couple showed up and you were just in your heads, that is not going to work?
Wardrobe malfunction. 2 weekends ago, we were at a wedding, and the bridesmaids had all their dresses tailored to fit, and they were all tailored wrong. So the one girl, I think, was wearing 3 bras to fit in her dress.
Yep.
And 3. At that same wedding, the bride, her shoes broke right before she went down the aisle, so she ended up
switching with her maid of honor, and the maid of honor wore flip-flops.
Yeah.
And then the maid of honor the poor girl, her dress split in the back, so the coordinator had to just sew
This is
her
all at
up.
the same wedding. Yeah, so that was
Before
kind of
that,
crazy.
I don't
Yeah.
think we had seen any wardrobe malfunctions.
No,
But
I mean little things like
Yeah.
I
can't
don't
even
know.
think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our weddings have been very, very low key. No major disasters or anything that.
As far as like engagement sessions and things like that, we haven't really had anything that we're like, nope, that's not going to work at all. But we do try to educate our couples beforehand on
What not to wear.
what not to wear, and then just try and help them out like in their own style too, because I guess our goal is to make them look as close to themselves as possible, but at the same time, dress it up a little
We
bit.
describe it when we talk to them as, wear what you would normally wear and rev it up a notch.
And we do give them tips and stuff like that. What not to wear, what the camera doesn't like so much, and and things like that. But we haven't had
It's a
anything
good question,
that.
though. We get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Tell us the horror stories about your bridezillas and everything. We've never had a bridezilla, so we can't really do that.
Okay, so you've heard about what happens when things go wrong sometimes when you're shooting. Could you tell us about some of the favorite memories that you have from some of the shots you've done?
I think, a favorite of mine is always the engagement sessions when we get to know the couples, and at the beginning, they're really nervous and not so certain and like, I don't like being in front of the camera. And then by the end of it, they're loving it and loving the images that we're showing them on the back of the camera. And there's so many times when we drive away from a shoot and we'll get a text message saying, we had so much fun. Thank you so much. And that's like the biggest compliment we could ever get, because we've helped them just really be who they are and feel comfortable in front of the camera. And it means that their wedding day is just going to be amazing, because they're not going to be worrying about, the photographer being right there all the time. And I think the other thing for me is when we do a first look. So that's when the bride and groom see each other before the ceremony, but it's just the two of them. And the groom turns around and sees his bride for the first time, and you can't take that look away or that emotion or that feeling, because we're kind of standing off to the side. So it's just a moment that's between the two of them, and they have some time to process and, take it all in. And it's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah. I would say that the most rewarding parts for me are when we have clients come over and see their pictures and they just freak out over their pictures. And it's just so much fun to share those with them and to capture those memories for them that they'll be able to enjoy for the rest of their lives. And to put those into a wedding album is like a privilege. I mean, when you think about things like, if your house catches on fire, the first thing you grab is your wedding album, and we really put that kind of value on the job that we've been, given to build that album for them and to kind of capture those memories for them to cherish forever. That's really just, awesome to be able to do that for people. And then also, I think Nat mentioned, the compliments that we get, they're really rewarding. Like, we were at a wedding on the weekend, and the bride told us that after they met with us initially for their first meeting, she was like, even if we can't afford them, can we just invite them to the wedding? And, stuff like that is just just really neat that, people really like us that much. And it's just fun to meet new people and get to know people and build new friends in the process.
I think some of my favorite parts of wedding days are hearing the speeches. We've had a few weddings where you can just see the love between either, the friends or the family members. And it's just really cool to hear what other people have to say about the couple that we're shooting. Because again, you can tell their personality. Oftentimes you hear about things from their childhood, and it's fun to see them really be encouraged, on their wedding day. And yeah, that's one of the best parts too. And then the other part for me is always the details. I love the details. And yeah, those are, Matt and I, that's probably the one thing that we fight about the most on a wedding day, is who gets to take pictures of the details. 'Cause
Well, guys, we want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been really great to hear about both your work and your personal lives. If people are interested in learning more about you or your blog, where can they go to find out that information?
Our blog is mattnnatblog.com, which is mattnnat blog.com. If you would just want to see some samples of our work, you can just do mattnnat.com just to see a gallery of our recent weddings.
And our blog includes, obviously, all of our weddings and engagements, those stories, and just stuff about our personal lives randomly in there as well. So,
Well, thanks again. We hope you've been enjoying the Lancast.
This episode was produced by myself, David Moulton, with show notes by Lauren Slesser.
All pertinent links to this episode can be found in the show notes at thelancast.com.
If you specifically liked this episode, we ask that you consider making a donation.
Every little bit helps. Even $1 a show can keep us going.
If you would like to help support us in that way, you can visit thelancast.com/donate.
And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend about the show.
So, for the Lancast, I'm David Moulton,
And I'm Becky Svensson.
asking, are you in the cast?